All right, welcome everyone to December's training webinar on Microsoft Dynamics CRM. Today's webinar is brought to you by myself, as usual, Angelina Jacobs. I'm one of the senior CRM consultants at CRM Dynamics, located in Mississauga, Ontario. As always, please feel free to take down my contact information. If you wish to send me an email message afterwards, or if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can, I will point you in the right direction in terms of additional resources and so forth. I'm always glad to help. Sometimes people's questions are a little more extensive than the time allowance, so by all means, just shoot me an email. You can also find a lot of our past webinars on our website. You'll see at crmdynamics.com. We have a learning academy, so there's a bunch of additional resources on there, past webinars, videos on how-tos, and so forth. So for today, we're just doing a shorter tips and tricks webinar. It's close to the holiday season, so I know everyone's kind of clearing out their schedules to hopefully take some vacation. So today will be a bit shorter. What we're going to cover is just quick navigation in the system. We're going to look at themes, and this is how people can play around with the colors within their system, add in logos, and so forth. I'll also cover the quick access pieces within CRM, and then we'll end off with just some personal options and how each user can configure those. So without further ado, I will be going right into our CRM environment here. And just a quick note, I'm right now in 2016 8.1, so depending on the version of CRM, things might look a little differently, especially when I get to the themes portion, because I believe that is only become available in the 2015 update. So if that's not something you can see in your system, you might want to look into getting the newest updates. This also will be our last 2016 webinar. If you haven't already heard the news, Microsoft has moved into what they're calling Dynamics 365. So we're going to start into that in our webinars come the new year. So just some quick refreshers, and if you're new to CRM, hopefully this will be just as beneficial to you if you're new or you've already been using the system. What you see here when I first logged into my system is a dashboard. Now you can set your home page, which is what you see when you first sign into your CRM. For mine, it's this lovely sales activity dashboard. Again, some of the things that you'll see in this system, they might not be available in yours. Additionally, some of the other entities and areas of the system you might not see as well, because it all depends on the security permissions that you've been provided as a user in your CRM. So if there are certain things that you're wondering what they are, by all means ask about them. But again, some of those things can be limited based on security privileges within CRM. Now, if you haven't already done so in your systems, you can set your own default dashboards, and you'll notice that when I've signed in here and I'm on this dashboard, I also have this ribbon available to me up here, and it has a couple options. So I can actually set this dashboard as my default dashboard. What that means is that anytime I go into the sales dashboard area, this will be the first one that shows up. And you have these same options within each entity. So similar to your company's accounts, contacts, so forth. Whenever you see this set as default, whether it's on a dashboard, on a view, all it means is that will be the first thing that you see whenever you go to those areas. So we're going to go into a couple areas. At the top here, this is your main menu. This is how you get to the different pieces in your CRM. So you'll see here I've got this little 3 lines here, and it's the main menu area. So I've got my sales piece, service, I've got help center, marketing, and settings. Again, depending on your security role, some of these things might not even be available to you. Once you click on a section, so similar to sales, you'll get different sub-menus within. So there's my work. This is where you'll find your dashboards, your what's new, and your activities. The activities pieces, that's your things like phone calls, emails, appointments, tasks. So that's the activities area. Again, companies, you might have these labeled as accounts or clients in your system, so the labels can differ as well. We've got contacts, and of course sales has leads, opportunities, competitors here, and then at least the list goes on. So this is really the easy navigation within the system. You can always revert back, go to different areas by clicking this main menu area and then clicking the area you want to go into. If you're system administrators, a lot of times you'll reside in the settings area. Well, you'll do customizations, maybe import solutions, or do some of the system settings, which is the administration part. So it's pretty easy navigation in 2016 as well as the 2015 update, and it's pretty similar when you get into 365. So if anyone has, if anyone's updating soon or has registered for a new online system, you'll get the 365, and it's relatively similar. So within our navigation, we're going to go right into the themes aspect. And what we reference this is the themes is where you can change your colors, you can add in a logo, and that's in the settings, customizations area. So again, main menu, settings, customizations. And you always know where you are within your navigation in this top bar. So see how it says settings and it says customizations. If I ever want to go to another area within my main menu, I don't always have to go back to this. I can just have the down arrow on settings, and it gives me, again, all the areas within that main menu available to me. So you don't always have to click this and then go here. If you're already in the main area, click the arrow beside it, and you'll get the drop down here. I see some questions coming in, so by all means, please input them throughout the webinar, and at the end I will answer them. Okay, so without further ado, as I always say, we're going to go into the themes piece. What the themes refer to is the colors up here in your menu, the colors of your fonts, and then also some people are able to add in a logo. So you'll notice that when I've clicked on the themes, there's a default theme. This is the system default. You can't customize this, but you can copy it. So if you ever do want to either input your system logo, change some colors around, the first thing you want to do is select this record. So you'll see here I've highlighted it and it has a select box here. I did not mean to double click that and open it. My apologies. Select, and then you'll notice at the top ribbon I now have this clone button, and that's going to allow me to clone that theme, and you'll see here it now says copy of the default theme. This is the one that you can edit. So I'm going to open that one up, and you can rename it if you want. So you can just keep it as copy, or if there's a particular name you want to add to it so that it gives a little more detail on what this one is, this is where you'd put it. And then you'll see here all these color bars. So these are obviously the default colors within your system. So you've got the blues, like in the navigation bar color. You've got link colors, so you know when there's a global link, it shows up as kind of blue. You can change that. Now, one of the things to note with these color schemes, you more than likely have to be familiar with the color number. So it's not like if I click this, I get a wheel of color available to me. So if that's not something you're familiar with, most likely your marketing department knows the colors of your logo if you ever do want to change that. So you'd always just put a number in here, similar to what you see here. And it will then give you a preview of what it is. But again, just noting, it doesn't give you a color wheel to choose from. You actually have to have the number here. So I mentioned in the themes that you can add a logo in. And where that logo goes, you'll see here, logo, it goes into this area up here in the top left. And that's normally where this Microsoft Dynamics CRM label is. And this is also a live link to go back to your home page. So what we can do is we can add a new logo. Now, in order to do that, you have to use a web resource. So if this is not familiar to you, I definitely suggest just doing a quick search on what a web resource is, but I'll show you quickly how you can create one. web resources can be used for a few different things, but in this case, we're just using it to capture a JPEG or PNG image. So you'll see here, I'm going to create a new one, and I will go through this a little bit quicker just because it's a bit separate from what we're covering today. Now, for my name, you always want to give it its own unique name, so I'm going to be putting in logo demo, just so I know. And this is kind of that back-end name, so similar to the schema names that you would have when creating fields. And then the display name is what you'd actually see when you're searching it. So I'm going to say, demo logo. You can put a description in if you ever just want to put some notes on what actually this web resource is. And then you're going to pick a type. So here you'll see there's HTML stuff, there's JavaScript, some other pieces that developers would use. But then there's this PNG format. That, and additionally there's JPEG and GIFs here. So I'm going to pick PNG, and then I'm going to browse for my file. Now, depending on the size of your logo, you may have to resize it. The smaller the better. Unfortunately, I'm not sure what the exact pixels is in this case, but you'll see here in my photo, I'm just adding in a logo that I've resized to make much smaller. Then I save this. I can preview my web resource if you ever want to take a look at the actual photo. So you'll see here I have, if you can see on your screen, it's very tiny. I have some color here, and there is text here, but obviously it's white because that's how our logo is in this case. I'm going to publish this, and what that does, it makes it available to the system. And then I'll get out of here. So I've created a web resource. Now I'm going to add it into this logo area by just doing a quick search. So I'll say demo. And then here's my new logo demo web resource that I've created. So I've added that in. Now, before I save this theme, I can preview it. So you'll see here, I've got a preview button at the top. And this way I can see what it looks like prior to actually publishing it to the system. Now I'm in a preview mode, and you'll see here now in the top left, I've got that nice little logo of mine. So see how small this is? Keep that in mind if you are ever adding in a logo that your picture most likely has to be resized to much smaller than what marketing usually provides. So I do like this. I can exit the preview. And then I can publish this theme. So I publish the theme. And you'll see here it refreshed, and I've now got my logo up there. Same thing would happen if you changed any of these colors. If I change, this navigation bar, that would have been at the same time when I published the theme. So that's how you can change some of the colors, maybe match to your logo colors, and give a little more company personalization to your CRM system. So I mentioned that your logo, or what used to be the Microsoft Dynamics CRM logo, is your home page button. So if I click this, this is going to bring me to my home page. Again, I mentioned when I sign in, the first thing I go to is my dashboards. So this is a live link to always go back to my home page very easily without having to navigate through the menus up here. But again, you can always see which area you're in by looking at the top here. So clearly I'm in the sales dashboards area. Now moving on to the right side of the screen, I'm just going to move my little webinar window here. There's a couple buttons you'll see here. Now if you're not familiar with these, there's a couple things. You can always hover over them to get their label on what they are. So this little kind of history looking icon, this is your recently viewed items. So when you're in your system and you click this, it'll show you the records that you were just in while signed into your system. So it's a great way to revert, just like easily go back to any records you were previously on without, again, having to navigate through the whole menu. So this is your recently viewed. You'll notice that beside all my recently viewed records, I have these little pin buttons. What this allows you to do is if there are certain records or certain areas that you go to frequently, you can actually pin them to this menu. And you'll see here in my recent views, I've pinned the My Active Accounts area. What this does, it really just limits the amount of clicks that you have to do in order to get to these areas. So instead of having to go to sales and then accounts, I have it pinned right here to go right to my active accounts. And you can do the same with actual records. So if there are, your big accounts, big clients that you deal with on a daily basis, when you visit their records, they'll become populated into this recent records list, and you could pin them then so that they're easily accessible. So, I see I have activity stuff here. These are most likely opportunities, stuff like that. And then you can always unpin. So it's not like when you pin something, it's there for life. You can always unpin it when you're done using or done having it in your recently viewed items. Okay? The plus button on the other side here of the recently viewed, this is your quick creates. Now this menu here can change depending on the settings in the back end of your system. So a system administrator, customizer can set whether different entities allow quick creates. So it's a privilege that they add to the entity themselves to be able to access them through this quick create menu. So you'll see here company, competitor, contact, lead, and opportunity. These are all things that are available for quick creates. And of course, my activities. So again, it's just another way to limit the amount of clicks that you have to go through in order to get to those areas that you might use on a daily basis. So I can create tasks right from here instead of having to go sales, activities, and create new. Instead, I can just go to this quick create button and create a new one from here. Okay. And then moving further to the right, you have a search bar here. What this is it's a multi-entity search. So I'll just get rid of my menu here. Whoops, there. So what I mean by multi-entity search, it means if I put in something like an account name, copy, and I press enter, it's going to show me different types of records that have copy within it. So you'll see here I have a company, copy printing. There's a contact, Vicky, and she's most likely coming up because you'll see here she's the primary contact for this company. Also, there's an opportunity record that's associated with copy. And if there was a case would most likely show up here, or a lead would show up here as well. Now, the multi-entity search can be configured by system administrator in the settings area, administration area of your system. And what they can do is they can tell the system which entities, so opportunities, contacts, cases, companies, and so forth, the multi-entity search uses. So let's say you have a custom entity in your system and you want to include it in this multi-entity search. That can be added in the back end. There is a limitation to how many entities this search can do, and I believe it's up to 10 entities. So anything after that, it will not allow you to search. So it's quite a bit, though. You can search up to 10 entities within this multi-entity search. Also, you'll see here that there's 3 line items. So within my searches, it'll give me 3 different data fields is what they are. In this case, I have a company name, a blank value, so the field actually doesn't have any data in it, and then a primary contact. The opportunity, you'll see here, it has the opportunity topic, the account, and the contact. Again, these are things that can be configured in the back end of your system, so either by a customizer or system administrator. And it's just customizing the quick view forms in order to switch up what data fields show up in this search. Okay? Lastly, to the right of your multi-entity search is your advanced find. This is a great tool for report purposes, finding specific data, on-the-fly searches, anything like that. Creating personal views, editing personal views. The advanced find is your go-to for all of that. So you'll notice it opened up a new window in my advanced find. So there's a couple pieces to point out here. The look for, this is the list of entities within your system. So depending on where you're looking, so if I go into, let's say, my companies, there we go, I can create some on-the-fly searches in my company's entity. So I could say, where city equals Toronto, and then get results. And you can do additional filter criteria here. So again, if this is something new to you, we do have webinars on Advanced Find and how you can build these filter criteria. So again, by all means, please check out our Learning Academy as well as our YouTube channel for any of those past videos on how to do that. The other nice piece with Advanced Find is if you've created any personal views, and what I mean by personal views, I'll go back and show you in the system here. So I'm going to go into sales, and I'm going to go to my companies. Again, a view is this piece here. So some people might refer to it as a list or a grid. It's basically, think of it as an Excel worksheet. So it's just listing all the records within this area of accounts. Now I can switch views by clicking on this arrow here, and I've got system ones available to me as well as my views, and these are your personal views. You'll notice you can create multiple. So if I click Create Personal View, watch what pops up. Very similar form, Advanced Find. So it's the exact same form I opened when I went to this button in the top right as when I click Personal View. So see how I now have two of the exact same windows open. Okay. So if you ever do create personal views, and I will just exit out of this page, and you want to edit them, you want to delete them, or maybe you want to share them to other users, this is how you do it. So you go to the Advanced Find, launch this window. Again, always make sure you're looking in the right area of your CRM. So in this case, I'm looking at companies. And you'll see here in the show area, I have saved views. So if I click this, it's going to show me all my personal views that I've created in the company's entity. And if I select one of these, and then I go to the tab Saved Views, so see how it has list tools for my saved views, I have some options here. So one, I can actually delete it. So let's say you created one by accident or you were just testing out some stuff, you can remove them this way. You can deactivate it. What that does is it removes it from the view list over here, but at least keeps your view saved. So you won't have to recreate it. You can just activate it again if you ever want it to come back into this list in the back. The other thing you can do, and a lot of administrators will do this, is they'll create personal views based on other criteria that they've received from their coworkers. So they'll create them, make sure they're working and look nice, and then they will select it. They can either assign it to someone else, which means it changes the ownership of this view, and then it becomes a personal view for someone else, and then is removed from theirs, or they can share it. And this is great if someone creates a really nice view, good filter criteria, and some other users like it. Instead of them having to recreate the exact same thing, that user can just share it with them. So you'll see when I click Share, I can add a user or team. I can remove them afterwards, so if you ever want to remove that sharing privilege. And you'll see here, there's options at the top here. So if I add a user to this, and I'll just add Bill, I select and I add him, I can give him different privileges to this view. I can just allow him to read it, so it means it's available to him to use. I can allow him to edit it as well, which is the right privilege, meaning he could come in and do some edits to the view. I can allow him to delete it if I wanted to give him that access. I can allow him to assign it, meaning he could also assign it to another user, which changes the ownership. And I also have the option to share it, or allow him to share it, meaning he could also share it to other users afterwards. You'll notice here the append is grayed out, and that's because with this personal view, it's not something that he would need an append privilege for. And if you're ever wondering what the append privileges are, there are additional security videos that we have from past webinars that explain the append and append to privileges. So here I can allow him to read it, and then I share it to him. So now that view will also be available to Bill in his personal views list. I can then go back, go into my share options again, and I can remove him from it. So I've selected him, and I just say remove selected items. Share is like a save, and now it's back to just being my own personal view, and no one else can see it. So it's pretty easy that way. So again, to reiterate, Advanced Find, great feature. It does a lot of things from allowing you to create and edit your own personal views, as well as do a lot of the on-the-fly searches. So when you do work through some of your filter criteria and look at the results, you will then be able to export to Excel. You can edit some of the records if you have that privilege, and the list goes on. Now, to end things, we're going to just look at personal options. And this is something that a lot of users miss when they first get access into their CRM system. And one of the first things that I always tell users to do when they log in to their CRM as a new user is to go to the top right gear box. This is where you can see what version of CRM you're on, what apps are available, but you also have this options here. And what this does is these are personal options, so they will only affect you, the user signed in. So I mentioned earlier, you can set your own home page. So the first page that you see when you sign in, as well as the page that when you click your logo or the Microsoft Dynamics logo in the top left, that it reverts you back to. Now, these can be set on a user role. So you'll see here my default pane is based on a back-end default customization, that the administrator have set, but I can change this. So watch here, I used to go into sales and dashboards. Let's say I want to still go into sales, but instead of defaulting to dashboards, I want to actually go right into my companies list. So there's one thing I can do. The second option that I always suggest users look at is this records per page. So by default, it is usually set to 50. And what that means is in a back end, or sorry, not the back end, in the views that you see here, so this grayed out area, and I'll show you after I save these records here relate to this records per page. So if you only want to see 50 on a page, that's fine. But if you have over 50 records, what you'll have to do is revert to the pagination and change pages. The most the system will allow you is 250, but you'll see that when I press OK, just does a quick refresh, you'll see here if I had it set to 50 records, but I have 64 in this list, so I have 1 to 64, I would only see 1 to 50, and then I'd have to go to the next page to see the rest. But because I set it to 250 records per page, I'm allowed to see all of these on one scrolling page. So if you ever notice in a lot of your lists, in a lot of your views, that you're only seeing 50 records, and that relates to all areas in the CRM, go into your options and change the records per page. Okay? You also have time zones that you can set in here. So if you have companies spread across the country or countries, you can change the time zone. What that does, it just displays the time for that user in the time zone that they've selected. Same with the default currency. So you can set this. There is usually a system default as well. But let's say you as a user usually do work in US dollars. Well, this is where you could set it, which would then override the system one of Canadian dollars. or vice versa. You also have the option here too to do any of your country codes. So again, this is just a little more personalization for you to put into your system. The other area I like to show in the personal options is the formats. And what this is your number formatting, your currency formatting, and your date formatting. And some people are really picky with their dates in terms of how they see them. Some people like just seeing the numbers. Some people like seeing the month spelled out or shortened at least. This is where you can edit that. So you can pick your default format. So you'll see here it says English United States. I could also change this to English Canada. I could change it to English Australia, so forth. So let's say I want to go English Canada. It shows me a preview of the default settings, but you'll notice on the right here, I can customize it. So if you click Customize, it'll show you a few other tabs that you can customize in terms of the default formatting. So you'll see here you can change how the numbers, currency, time shows, and then the date. So this is the one that most users go to, but again, you can change the other ones. So the short date format. This is what shows in most of the data fields, and it's usually just the numbers. But you'll notice if I go to this format and drop down, it gives me some other options. So one thing to note, whenever you see the month with 3 M's, that means it will spell it out in short form. So let's say I want to have day, month, year, but I want the month to actually spell out, the short form for December or for July. A lot of times people or users will like this instead of the numbers is that, when you have those certain dates that could be a day or a month, this will eradicate that confusion. The date separator you can change as well. So right now it's a dash. Let's say you like having the hyphen, you could do that. And then I'll click apply. See how my short date preview has changed? So now this is what my dates will look like. It'll say 15th December 16. Let's say I wanted to have that full date, which I thought I selected, and have the full year, go apply. Now there's no confusion on what date this is. Obviously, it's the 15th of December, 2016. And then you can go OK. So remember, this is a personal option, so the changes you do here will only affect the user and not the rest of them. There are system-wide formatting that administrators can put in place, but in terms of your own personal settings, you can edit them to show in the format that you prefer. And then you just go OK. And again, it will refresh and apply those settings immediately.